So I think the idea that, we're going to start seeing some previews and reviews of the next-gen hardware is probably something that we're going to start seeing quite often now. It just so happens that the first piece that was done on the PlayStation 5 by Skewed, they're Skewed and Reviewed is the name of the magazine. I believe they do like a physical magazine. They might do an online magazine as well. I don't know. But they definitely had some very interesting things and positive things to say about the PlayStation 5, which I feel like a lot of people will probably want to hear about. I mean, some of the stuff is common sense, you'd figure with the next-gen console, but it is nice to see a lot of hype being garnered for, a next-gen platform, especially given how many people keep saying that, consoles are dying and consoles are on the way out. So I think this should be a pretty good video, and I really do appreciate everyone kind of checking it out with me. Hey, what's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks to all the new subscribers, old subscribers, and everyone in between. The best way you can support me is just simply by hitting the like button. It really shows you care. I put a lot of hard work into these videos, and so when you guys like them, it means a lot. So it's much appreciated for sure. So, we're going to start seeing a lot of people talking about like the reviews and previewing some of these consoles, in particular the PlayStation 5 right now. Phil Spencer's playing the Xbox Series X. I'm sure we're going to see some previews and reviews on that in the near future as well. But it's very interesting just to see from a point of view like this article is kind of mentioning a lot of the big things that, most of us would probably say, hey, that's why I'm going to get a PlayStation 5. But again, according to this, it's like the dual sense controller is just something that's pretty much out of this world. And again, when you go and talk about next generation consoles, right, you always kind of want to think about the features and the things that these things are doing that weren't really possible on the previous generation, right? And I think that that's exactly what Sony's mentality was. And according to this, they went all out with the next generation idea. And it's a starkly contrast idea than what Microsoft is trying to do. Because if you think about it, Microsoft is trying to say, well, we've got like 40 million people on Xbox One, and we've got a large amount of PC people or whatever. Let's keep those people on board while we come out with this next new thing. The problem is that didn't really work with the Xbox One X, even though that's quote unquote a mid-gen upgrade. But again, people would possibly drop what they have for the next generation if there's games that aren't available on the current stuff still. So what I mean by that is I think that's going to backfire a little bit, and that's sort of what this alludes to. It's going to backfire on Microsoft, because if you have 42, 45 million people on Xbox One, and you can play all the Xbox first-party stuff on those consoles still, why would you upgrade, right? So it really puts Sony in a good spot, because they're like, hey, you want to play this new Spider-Man or Horizon game? You got to buy a PS5. And everybody's just going to, that's how next generations have always worked. And I feel like what Microsoft is trying to do is more or less come across as quote-unquote the good guys and say, hey, we're pro-consumer, we're pro-consumer, we're pro-consumer, and, we won't make you buy something new to play something new. Which, again, the whole purpose of the new hardware is to give us stuff that realistically cannot be done on the other platforms, so on the older platforms in specific. So I do really feel like, that should be something that kind of needs to be kind of said. They're different tactics. Microsoft wants to pretend like, hey, they don't see Sony as competition. I kind of disagree with that. I think they do see Sony as competition. I just feel like they realize there's not much they can do about it. Now, according to this anyway, the PlayStation 5 is probably the best console that they've had the chance to kind of check out and things like that. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there. So again, the Skewed and Reviewed magazine, the new generation of console gaming is what it's called, and they just really do kind of a good breakdown of it, and they talk about it, and just being able to just kind of get out there and go, hey, the PlayStation 5, this is what it's going to do. They're pretty upfront about it. Sony has been very upfront about it. I personally was hoping to see something about backwards compatibility or something along their lines in there, but obviously that wasn't really what they were mostly focusing on. They were just basically focusing on, hey, here's this console, it's super powerful, and the solid state drive is out of this world. It's something that really is crazy and kind of does so many different things. Again, I just feel like at the end of the day, what they've been able to do as a whole is really impressive, and I got to say that I'm super impressed with everything that they've been able to accomplish. Like, we've been able to see the first box art for upcoming PlayStation 5 games. I think it looks sleek. It looks familiar, but it looks it also looks like it's something that could be new and futuristic at the same time. So I do think that they've done a good job kind of explaining here exactly why you'll want the PlayStation 5. Obviously, the load times are a thing of the past. You've got this great new controller. It's doing all these types of things that we maybe didn't even think possible even a generation ago, and yet here Sony is absolutely saying, hey, not only is that possible, but we're doing it even to a better extent than what most people actually thought. So I really do believe that Sony was onto something with this, and it sounds like from this glowing kind of preview review type thing that they're doing, that they really feel like Sony's got the edge on the next generation console race. And I think that doesn't really have anything to do with this console versus this console or being less powerful or anything like that. I just feel like it has to do with they feel like Sony really put together a great console. And that's not to say that Microsoft didn't, because they haven't done that one yet, but that's just basically them saying, hey, Sony went all out. They did this fantastic console. We're really thrilled by it. It looks fantastic, and it's super powerful. It's super quiet. It's got this amazing controller. We're doing these things that we didn't really think possible in the past, but here we are. And obviously, the games are a big part of any equation when it comes to the next generation. You know what I mean? I think that really, when it comes down to it, all this it's a lot of the intangibles, because they're talking up the things like, hey, they got the haptic feedback now that's more immersive. And again, I've been preaching this immersion stuff for a very long time now. Hey, we've got this immersion, we've got these new haptic feedback triggers that let you feel like you're in the sand, that make you feel like if you're on water, you feel that immersion. We've got to basically next to no load times. You can go world to world or whatever. We've seen some of that with Ratchet and Clank already. It also lets you allows you to load assets faster and stuff like that. Particularly first party, you're going to be able to take huge advantage of that. Well, why is that such a big deal if third party aren't? Well, some third party will take advantage of it, but you have to remember their first party is second to none to begin with. I mean, just look at the way that stuff like The Last of Us Part 2 or Ghost of Tsushima kind of looks, even in compared to stuff we've seen on the Xbox Series X. Well, I don't really know if we've quote-unquote seen it on Xbox Series X, but what I'm saying is, we haven't seen anything from Microsoft, but a lot of the stuff that they show obviously isn't as graphically impressive as what Sony shows. I mean, if you look at God of War, even on a base PS4, why is that game looking better than something on a 6 teraflop Xbox One X game that's exclusive from Microsoft, right? Like, it's really easy to kind of point that out, that Microsoft's developers clearly aren't on the same level as as Sony. So that's going to play big into what's going on with next generation. And I just feel like games are the most important thing, but there's other intangibles too, and I really feel like that's something that a lot of people kind of forget about or whatever. So I mean, obviously the hard drive, you've got a futuristic console that's really quiet and it kind of cuts down on the noise. You've got some a fantastic new controllers. They've really just gone all out with this thing, and I really got to say bravo to them. They managed to go out there and kind of do some amazing stuff with it, and it's very interesting to see how Sony has kind of evolved. They didn't sit there and go, hey, let's just kind of rest on our laurels or anything like this. From this article, it makes it seem like Sony went all out with this thing, and it's their best console that they've ever made. So, I mean, that really kind of says everything that, you'd want to be able to say about it. Like, to me, I think that really just kind of gives you all that you want to know about it, okay? Like, wow, this thing's pretty damn amazing, and Sony absolutely crushed it. So again, I feel like they've really done a good job. They've gone all out with it, and bravo to them, because I do feel like next generation is going to be very interesting. But I also think that Sony has kind of cut any hope off that Microsoft had, even though Microsoft has the power advantage, because Sony has so many other advantages, not even just with their software, but even some hardware advantages as well. Power isn't everything. T-flops aren't everything. You're having people kind of say that as well. They've addressed a lot of the issues, like the noise issues, the sound issues, and so that we shouldn't be having all those problems that we had with the PS4 and PS4 Pro. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing exactly what happens after these consoles launch. It should be interesting. Will Microsoft ever win an NPD again? We'll have to wait and see. I said they probably wouldn't win one again years ago, and here we are years later. and they still haven't won an NPD. So we'll have to see how it works. Is a cheaper console going to work? Well, it didn't work this gen. You know, they've had a cheaper console. I think that Microsoft is going to try to undercut Sony in price. Will it work out? That's debatable. Again, you got to have a reason to buy these consoles in the first place, and it sounds like Sony has done a heck of a job with this console. I will link this. Let me know what you guys think in the description below. Thank you so much for spending time with one of my videos. Rack 'em up and game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.